everyone. Great to see you here this afternoon. So I'm Alison Wagonfeld, and I head up marketing for Google Cloud, and have the great honor and pleasure to be able to spend 20 minutes asking questions to one of our great customers, an awesome partner, and to also the CIO of Google. So Aireen is here from AirAsia, Fidelma from IronMountain, and as I mentioned, Ben. So I'm going to start by asking each of them a question and then go into a little more specific, and then we will wrap with a speed round. So I want to start off by, we were listening to PH in the back room and talking about being your customer, and thinking then about, as we were chatting, about what it means to use the cloud to get closer to your customer. What does that mean for you at AirAsia?
Well, for us, we have a lot of growth in AirAsia, really. We're looking at how we started with just 2 airplanes in 2001 with just over 20,000 passengers. And now we're looking at about 90 million passengers per annum. And there's a lot of data coming from our booking system and data coming from our aircraft and also from our engines. So we see that in terms of how do we integrate all this data, centralize them, and be able to use them in terms of being more responsive and more innovative towards our consumer needs. And it's not just about the consumer needs that we're looking at, but also understanding their behavior. How do we design a personalization program that actually incorporates their natural behavior? How do we also look at our operational efficiency so that at least our consumer actually enjoy the journey with us? By being on time, by being able to serve what they want to, and so forth. And how do we use that data to be able to give them a seamless journey from the moment they book until they arrive and until they return from their flight? And that also means in terms of how do we give them a one-stop travel and experience need for them, and not just the flights, basically. So for us, it allows us the ability to be more consumer-centric, and with all the data that we have from all the consumers, we can see what other business opportunities can we build around it. And I think that with that, we can serve our consumers better.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I mean, the growth of AirAsia has been incredible to watch. Fidelma, with respect to Iron Mountain, when you think about getting closer to your customer with the cloud, what does that mean to you? And maybe talk a little bit about our recent partnership.
Yeah, so I mean, we've just announced a great partnership with Google, and Iron Mountain, you know, our specialty is information management, and it's really been focused, you know, around paper and physical records and compliance and risk, and managing that for our customers. So as we look at where our customers are going and what they want from us, we have now started to invest in technologies and solutions to basically take paper, any physical assets, any digital assets, digitize them in a seamless process, and then working with Google on your ML and AI technologies, coming together on vertical solutions so we can provide more insights for our customers. So providing really what they need and what they want and expect from us all the time around risk and compliance and record keeping, but also making sure that that data now is, you know, has basically been enlightened and enriched so that we can provide more insights to the business and drive revenues for our customers.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone here will appreciate that. Probably 2/3 of this room, or probably more, are customers of yours. And to be able to use ML and AI will be fantastic. And in fact, when we were chatting before this panel, Ben mentioned that you've been a customer of Iron Mountain for a while. But Ben, maybe tell us a little bit, in your role at Google, you kind of have a different set of who's your customer.
Right. And I actually, who is my customer, what is my customer, has been this great challenge. I think I've been at Google about a decade now, and in that time, Google has grown the employee base has grown by something like 7x, and business complexity, lines of business, lines of revenue have grown by maybe a factor of 10. So knowing my customer is this ongoing challenge for me and my organization, trying to keep up with or stay ahead of and deliver technology that automates a workforce that's always changing is kind of the big story, and a way in which, you know, both GCP and G Suite have been key enablers.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's certainly, as one of your customers, I appreciate the work that your team does. So Fidelma, you probably looked at all of the different cloud providers when deciding to work with Google. What was it about Google Cloud that appealed to you?
You know, so when I came to IronMountain, which was a little over a year ago, my first mission was to talk to customers and understand kind of what they wanted from us. We're very informed by a number of our customer councils that we run. So we set out on this mission to provide the solutions that we're starting to roll out with you. And part of that was who is the best provider and the right provider for these type of solutions. And for us, we initially intended to roll out kind of compliance and risk products and then follow that up with ML and AI. And honestly, Google helped catapult us in that roadmap. And so we really chose Google Cloud as kind of underlying infrastructure for these solutions because of your ML and AI capability. And quite frankly, also because of the talent of the people that we interacted with at Google and their ability to really work with us to take some of our customer problems, work with our engineers who kind of truly understand how these are used, and then translate that into different technologies and different work that we could do together. So we really chose you because of your, what I would call your leadership in ML and AI above all other things.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And we actually hear that quite a bit on a couple of fronts. One is, Diane says it often when she's engaging with customers, it starts out talking about specific workloads or very specific elements, and then the conversation gets broader and broader. And then as we bring in more and more Googlers into the conversation, everyone's like, oh, this is great. This is the team I want to work with. So I'm glad that you had that experience. And so, Aireen, you talked a bit about the kind of digital transformation or what you're putting in place now with the cloud that you're hoping to achieve in terms of digital transformation. Looking out 3 years, what would success look like? If you were back on the stage 3 years from now talking to everyone saying, we are really well on our way to what we want to do, what would you be saying?
Well, what I will be looking at is in terms of our response time with consumers, our passengers basically, and to be able to provide all other offerings and not just flights. Because really with all those data that we have, there are a lot of business opportunities that we're creating in terms of other e-commerce platforms, such as an online travel agent, fintech, and so forth. And this is just providing them with a one-stop center for all their needs whenever they travel or even their own lifestyle. So really the ambition is how do we not only use machine learning and so forth, but with that, how do we create other business opportunities that we will be the biggest e-commerce platform, which so happens to fly an airline.
Right. Well, that's a very ambitious goal. We're happy to be working with you on that. Super exciting. Ben, you have an interesting vantage point working across all of Google, and also as being, in many ways, Google Cloud's biggest customer.
Yeah.
What's some advice that you would give, and how have you seen that evolution of kind of becoming kind of cloud on cloud in a sense?
So it's been an amazing journey, and I'd have to say, for me, the transformational thing has been this laser-like focus that we've developed on the enterprise and now on the large enterprise. So the transformation element for me has gone from being an IT group with audacious goals around moving as many workloads as would fit to cloud, to understanding that actually we can be pioneers partnering with the rest of the cloud organization to understand how to move all of an IT organization's workloads. And that level of engagement and that partnership with cloud and the opportunities that's created for our technology organization have been incredible. Like, we've been on a path over the past couple of years to move all of the packaged software residing in conventional servers and so on into Google Cloud. That's resulted in something like 83 new features that are on track for delivery in cloud over the course of the next year or so. That's been an amazing journey to be on.
Yeah, oh, that's great to hear. So you each manage pretty big teams and have big organizations. If you could bring 100 people from your team here, which I know is hard to do, well, but you do get to do that, but maybe this is for Aireen and Fidelma. What would you hope they would learn? What's the information that you want to get and the knowledge you want to get to your teams right now?
I think with data, I think they're empowered to be able to make decisions quickly as opposed to how we used to do things, and that I would like that them to embrace that and work collaboratively, and how businesses are all aligned nicely for them to make that decisions. So that's something that I would like them to be able to use that quickly, to be able to be empowered and make sure that they also have can create ideas in terms of what they can do with this data that they are now able to see and know what they can do with it as well.
Yeah. And how about you, Fidelma?
So I think it varies on the type of person. Personally, I'd like to bring a cross-functional team as much as possible, not just the engineers, because I think it's the end-to-end that really creates kind of the value that a company brings to the marketplace. So what would I expect them? We have quite a big team here, actually. And you know, first of all, it's to engage in very kind of intellectually honest discussions around technologies. Second one is learning from the rest of the users of Google technologies, the best practices, the things to avoid. You know, there's no point in repeating other people's mistakes, and you know, you're going to make your own. But you may as well not add to them. And then I think the third thing is to really just kind of soak up the atmosphere of you know, being around so many industries that are being transformed, and to kind of soak up that bravery to kind of cross the chasm. You know, how do you cross the chasm, and how do you do it, you know, enlightened by technology and knowing the right places to apply and not to apply.
That's great. Well, hopefully on Thursday afternoon, we'll meet up again and you can tell me whether or not your team achieved all that.
Whether we're going to get there.
And if not, what we can do next year to make it better. Yeah. Ben, you probably have a bunch of people from your team here too. What are they doing?
So they're doing a bunch of things. Some of them are actually manning and personing booths in their staffing booths in the convention center. We have a great demonstration of Chromebook grab-and-go loaners, which is a service that we built out that maybe you've taken advantage of inside Google. I have another team working on meetings, kind of in the showcase area for meetings. And I have a bunch of people who are here because we have so much experience on my team using all of the cloud products that it's really important for us to connect with partners and customers and share our stories, right? So, and I've told all my team and everyone who's coming that there's this infinite value both to us and hopefully to the people we engage with in doing that.
Yeah, great. So before we go into our final speed round, I'm going to ask one last question of all of you. So I'll start off with you, Ben, about what would you advise people in this room to do in the next 6 months based on what your experience is so far in working with so many different?
Right, well, this is kind of inspired somewhat by Astro's talk earlier. And you know, one of the things Astro said was, you know, innovation can occur all over in an organization, but there's this organizational instinct to smash it like whack-a-mole, I think he said. And you know, one of the things that we've seen that is really the power of when you have your infrastructure and as many services as ideally all your services running on cloud, that's the same platform that you can use for innovation as you can use for running all of your traditional services. So anyone who has a good idea can on demand get access to the compute and the infrastructure that they need to actually realize that idea. And when it works, thanks to capacity on demand and global availability, you can have a great innovative idea that you can deploy to the entire company like that, right? And you don't have to worry about having success disasters because there's a great POC, but you can't actually deliver it globally, or you have to re-implement it because it only really ran in a test condition for 1 or 2 people. That would be, I think, if you want to try to connect the dots about Astro's inspiration around innovation with what you could do over the next 6 months, start there.
Yeah, that's great. So Aireen, what would you say based on your cloud journey to date and where you're going? What would you advise for the next 6 months?
Well, I think in the next 6 months with our cloud journey, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're hoping to do. Firstly, in terms of design a personalized program for consumers in terms of being more tactical and targeted in what we offer, and also in terms of our operations to ensure that we incorporate efficiency and productivity and so forth, and how machine learning can help as well. How do we use face and voice recognition, and also in terms of ambient intelligence, in able to provide that kind of efficiencies and productivity, and so forth. And how do we use machine learning in terms of being able for us to monitor our operations with precision, because accuracy is really important. How do we use cloud to be able to scale up our business faster than usual, and so forth, and to be able to detect safety and operational issues, which is very important for our operations.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And finally, Fidelma, how about you for the next 6 months? What's on the agenda for you?
So for the next 6 months, I mean, we're going to continue our transformation journey. And it's really all aspects of the company, but really powered and fueled by technology. You know, clearly, we want to have a successful launch with Google in the next couple of months.
You and me both, all of us here.
All of us together.
Everybody.
And really deepen that relationship that we're going to have around AI. And bringing that to the market in a packaged solution where workflows are easy to consume and we can provide insights to our customers. And so that will be kind of on the commercial side. On the kind of internal infrastructure side, we are aggressively moving a lot of our internal workload to the cloud. And I think, you know, as I see people taking it, they're seeing success, and success breeds success. So I think we're just going to see an increasing velocity and adoption of cloud technologies within IronMountain.
That sounds great. We're definitely there with you every step of the way. So now we're going to wrap up with a speed round where I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you can just share some of your insights so people here can get to know you a little bit, and you can follow up afterwards. So Ben, if you could take one university class right now, what would it be?
Data science, definitely.
Fidelma, what would you say?
Psychology.
Okay.
I'd probably take also data science, really.
What was that?
Data science.
Data science as well. So no theater, no. Doing it different. So I'm curious, and you can expand on this one for a little bit longer, but what was the last project you killed and why? You know, we talked about this a little bit earlier today with Esther Teller as well. Ben, I'll let you tee this one off. But.
Okay, over to me first. So at Google, the IT department has a pretty significant, the dial is turned towards build pretty significantly as opposed to buy. And we had an in-house project management system that had been in the company longer than I have, so over a decade. And it had been super tightly entwined into all of these processes that go on inside the company. But at the end of the day, there were a large number of engineers working on a project management system. And just from first principles, there's a really good technology industry and offerings around project management. So shutting down this in-house built project management system that had been under active development for a decade was the most recent thing that I did. And that was not, these things are never easy, right? I mean, the CIOs can share this with me. Like, we have a lot more launches than you have shutdowns in a given year, so.
Okay, and then so 2 other quick questions to wrap. If you could wave a magic wand, Aireen, and Google could do one thing for you, what would it be?
Okay, it's probably in the way, how do I use machine learning to predict my boss behavior?
Predict your boss's behavior.
So that
okay,
all
we would
of us
all like
can
that.
be prepared. Yeah, I would do that.
And Fidelma, what's your favorite interview question?
I think my favorite question that I ask someone is, give me a description of the time when you were very uncomfortable and why.
Oh, okay.
And you know, what techniques you've come up with to kind of get over that.
Okay, great. And so the final question, seeing that for many of us working at this event, summer basically starts for us this Friday. What's your favorite summer vacation spot? Ben, go ahead. Nope, that's
Probably
tough.
Cape Cod.
Cape Cod.
Extreme end of Cape Cod.
Fidelma?
Florence.
Maldives.
Maldives, there you go. Now you got it. Now we know all where we should be going later on this summer. And with that, we are going to wrap up this panel. And I want to thank all of you for joining us. Thank you all for being part of this. And now we're going to welcome back onto stage our MC, Chris Clayco. Thank you very much.